Welcome to the Elevate B2B podcast, where we have conversations that inform, include, and inspire the best in B2B marketing. I'm your host, Lee Oden, CEO of TopRank Marketing, and today we're talking with a fast-rising leader in the B2B marketing space that has been an inspiration and a source of insight for B2B marketers all over the world. She's the Director of Market Engagement for the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, the former president of LinkedIn's Black Inclusion Group, and the co-founder of LinkedIn's annual Transform Her conferences, as well as the author of Marketers of Tomorrow, a step-by-step toolkit for inbound marketing. And of course, I'm talking about my friend, Ty Heath. Welcome to the Elevate B2B Marketing podcast, Ty.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate that warm welcome.
It's great to see you again. I can feel the energy through the digital, through the internets. You give up so much good, positive energy. That's why I love to talk with you. So, and I'm sure everyone tuning in, watching is going to feel the same way. So for those that are tuning in for the first time to Elevate B2B, the purpose of this podcast is to focus on lifting up those in the B2B marketing world that are both creating impact and making a difference. And at TopRank Marketing, we're committed to telling stories that are optimistic, ambitious, and authentic with the goal of being equal parts informative and inspiring. So let's get started. Now, we'll get started with something really interesting, I think, Ty, for a lot of folks, and that is to understand, what are you most excited about in the B2B marketing world right now?
You know what? I think you landed on it. I feel the energy. I feel a shift in energy. I think we're more centered, if that makes sense. I feel like we're coming into our own. We have more swag, I think. I mean, for a long time, people have been like B2B, but now I think people are like B2B. Like it's kind of cool to see that shift. I think it's one of the most exciting times to be a B2B marketer. I think more people are excited to work on B2B creative and B2B ideas and are excited about the long-term relationship building aspects of it, the science of it. And there's just massive growth potential in the B2B economy. We know that B2B sales add up to be about $9 trillion a year. There's a hefty chunk being poured into B2B ads. The problem is that we see is that it doesn't do the job of long-term brand building. But the reality is, the cool reality is that people are starting to recognize that and how it could be magnitudes bigger and that it's an untapped opportunity. And that means there's an opportunity for massive value creation. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Well, hats off to you and LinkedIn for doing such important work to move the cool meter to the right for B2B with your work at B2B Institute and the research that and the thought leadership that you're putting forth. Really impressive. Last quarter there was a big focus on creativity at LinkedIn, creativity in B2B. Yes. The Cannes Lion live stream the other day was just awesome, and the fact that there's even a Cannes Lion category for B2B is amazing, right? So yeah, these are exciting times, and I appreciate the work that you've done and that LinkedIn has done, and a lot of marketers are starting to do, right? And they're really starting to bring over concepts and principles, not just from B2C, but originating brand new ways of engaging with customers that happen to work at businesses, right? Now you speak all over the place, and we were joking before, like your triple platinum status and hotel and airlines and stuff. So at Inbound, I got to see you or watch you speak. And you talked about in your presentation about category entry points and about linking buying situations to brand sales. Now that makes a lot of sense. I've never heard that exact expression before, this idea of category entry points. Can you elaborate on what that means for B2B marketers?
Shout out to Inbound, my favorite events to talk. And this was great to introduce this concept of category entry points, which has been around for a bit. The term was coined by Jenny Romaniak over at the amazing Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So it's such a revolutionary concept that we partnered with them to bring category entry points to life for marketers. And what they are is it's about relevant buying situations. It's about marketers' ability to match what people want when they think about all of the relevant buying situations that they're interested in working with a particular brand, and also with what you want to be known for from an investment standpoint. So the way we talk about it is to have people think about the fact that the most important search engine is still the one in our minds. So when people think about buying, they start not by searching Google, but by searching their memory. And what the brands need to understand about that is, like, when they search the memory, there's different memory structures we can invest in building so that people think about us in that moment when they're ready to buy. There's this amazing concept of situational awareness. And it talks about how when people are learning things, like, for example, learning vocabulary, you recall it best in a particular situation. So there was a study that showed when people learn vocabulary underwater, they're more likely to remember it when they're underwater, which is wild. I don't know who's doing vocabulary lessons underwater, but it's the same for brands. And so the idea of category entry points is to start linking your brand to those particular situations where people are thinking about making a purchase so that you're actually remembered. Because there's so many different common recurring needs, pain points, and motivations. The question is, beyond just the general awareness, are you known in those common recurring needs, pain points, and motivations? So the research helps you understand what are the most common situations you can identify. Which situations do you actually have credibility in terms of being able to link your brand to those situations and being known for? And then what are the least competitive or the places where you actually feel you can play? And then you invest in those areas. And frankly, it's similar. If you think about finance has to make a decision about what areas to invest in and what areas not to invest in. It's like capital allocation. Well, category entry points are like capital allocation for marketers, because you are deciding what messages or what buying situations to link your brand to. And that's how you can get more effectively be remembered and be bought in those buying situations.
That's so important right now. There's rising competition. There's proliferation of content. And so competition for time and attention is just crazy, even in B2B. And it's interesting. A lot of some of what you're talking about is very similar to an expression that we like to use, and that is be the best answer, or best answer content strategies. Use best answer content strategies to become first choice in the mind of that customer, depending on the channels of distribution or the channels of interaction, of discovery and information consumption that might be a preference for that buyer or the buying committee or whatever. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So we are in interesting times, and in the midst of a lot of talk about recession, a lot of B2B marketers are slimming budgets and narrowing their focus in anticipation of big market changes. And at the same time, they're feeling the pressure here in Q4 and at the end of the year to hit their numbers. And I know this is a big question, but with all that in mind, where do you think, if all other things were the same, where should marketers be focusing in a time like this?
Yeah, that is very real right now. Absolutely. And, I think kind of zooming out, it's important to remember and recognize that these things happen in cycles, and that oftentimes these hard times can be a time where greatness is born. So I think from even just a mindset standpoint, living in tough times, but good things can happen in tough times, and teams pull together. It can create the conditions for greatness. So I would just say, as a starting point, we have to take care of our people. We want our businesses to survive. We want to think about how we're taking care of employees, covering fixed costs, keeping the lights on, keeping people healthy and well. So that I think is like level one foundational stuff. Beyond that, when you have that in order, there's an opportunity to build. So we have some research called all-weather marketing. And, we like to take a lot of inspiration from the realm of finance. There is one of the most well-known minds in the space of finance from Bridgewater Associates, Ray Dalio. Some folks may be.
Yes. I just picked up his book, the World Order book. Sorry, I'm misquoting the title, but yeah.
Yeah, classic thinker in the space. And, he had an insight. It's not about what you do in good times. It's about how you manage in bad times, right? And so he came up with this fund called the All Weather Fund that was designed to perform in good times and bad times. And with this fund, this All Weather Fund that he created, it was up 9% during the 2008 financial crisis when the S&P was down 37%. And so if you think about the mindset of this all-weather fund, there's this all-weather marketing thinking that you can apply. And so we've got some research on that to think about as a marketer, how do you respond from a creative distribution strategy standpoint? So there are a couple principles, I think, for people to take in that are important to think about. One is just like, look at what the research shows. The research shows that investment in downturns does lead to increased sales. And you see this play out time and time again, increased sales, profit in the years following the recession. So it's pretty straightforward. If you can afford to do it, try not to cut your advertising budget, right?
Right.
We can talk a little bit more about how you can be a good steward of that. But if you think about it, there's this rule we have that's called the 95-5 rule. And what that rule says is that 95% of your audience is outmarket, what we call outmarket at any given time, and 5% of your audience is in market, ready to buy right now. In a recession, you're going to see even fewer in-market customers. So of course you have to keep the lights on. You have to capture that latent demand. But you have to also think about the fact that those many customers aren't in market. So how do you prime future buyers, maintain future cash flow, stabilize the business as we move through these times? And so from a creative standpoint, one way to save money is to keep your successful creative. So in good times and bad times, there's some creative that performs. The most successful marketers run the same creative for decades, actually. So you think about things like A Diamond is Forever from De Beers. They've been running the same creative since 1947. Wow. MasterCard's Priceless campaign has been running since 1997. So if there's something that's doing well, you don't have to create new creative. You can repurpose your existing creative. And we like to say that good creative wears in rather than wears out. From a distribution standpoint, let's say you have enough money to invest in media. During these times, there tends to be a flight to quality in financial markets, no different in marketing. So you want to look at where you can get high quality reach to reach your entire category, high quality attention, and high quality context. LinkedIn is a place where you can do that. Shameless plug.
Well, it's true.
It's true.
Right? If you're in business, you need to be doing business on LinkedIn, right? I don't know who said that, but it sounds good.
That's right. So, and then, here's an example of how you could be a good financial steward. So let's say you decide you still want to invest, you can invest. Use the dollars saved from recycling your old creative and redirect those funds to your media budget, right? So that way you're staying present. You're still building what we call excess share of voice, which is what you get when your share of voice is greater than your share of market. You're building with your future buyers as well so that you're remembered. So, if you just think about reallocation, just staying out there is important. And then the last thing I would say is that The recession is likely to be shorter than your buying cycle. So you don't want to lose sight of the short term. I think the average length of recession since World War II is about 11 months or so. So you can don't quote me on that. I think that's correct. But you got to think about how you can stabilize your business in the short term. Get focused with your team, take care of your team. Think about how you're capturing latent demand, but capitalize on the long term because it's not about profiting during a recession, but capitalizing on the recovery.
Yeah, I mean, keeping that market warm is that feeds into that category entry point sort of idea, maybe, and that you are first, you're top of mind. When the time comes. When you transition from that 95 or 97 into the 3 or 5% of in market, then there you are. Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about, creativity a little bit before, and, obviously historically B2B hasn't really been known for creative. And I believe you've said, or LinkedIn has talked about the correlation between creativity and marketing effectiveness. Can you share a little more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So this is an area where we've been investing deeply because we see how important creativity is, and there is a lot of potential for investment in B2B. I think it's powerful. I think it's exciting for B2B, and it offers great potential for talent coming into the space. That's part of the reason why we're investing and showing up at Cannes, and why we were a thought partner on the creation of the B2B Lion, because we wanted to create a space for B2B to really shine and invest in creativity. But the fundamental underlying reason to invest in creativity is really about this idea of building mental availability. So going back to, we're talking about relevant buying situations, the challenge for most brands is that they have high awareness, but few are top of mind. We want them to be remembered, not forgotten in the decision-making process, right? Brand that's remembered is the brand that's bought, is what we say. But so we have this report called Cashing In on Creativity. We have this excellent partner called System One. They're really great. They do an analysis of creative effectiveness. And they did an analysis of B2B ads, and what they found, this was wow. What they found is that 75% of B2B ads scored just 1 star out of 5 for effectiveness. Yeah, it's what? Exactly. So what that means is that 75% of the ads tested were not memorable, not effective, did not drive an emotional response. So in brand building terms, they were a waste of money. And so we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want that. A challenge. And here's why I like to think about this. That presents an opportunity, right? And in any challenge or anything like that shows up, there's an opportunity for us to invest. And so we want to share these principles of creativity so that we want B2B marketers to win. So, we want the creative to be emotional. We want fluency. We want recall. We want people to run their ads for periods of time and do things that really drive memory. And so we talk about, a couple different things to help turn this around. So having a story arc, thinking about how we bring a character into it. The character links to the brand. And this is something that B2C marketers do a lot. When you think about Geico, you think about the gecko. What does that have to do with insurance? But it's memorable, and it's a great effect. It's effective way of being remembered. Another underutilized thing is sound. We don't talk about sound a lot in advertising. When you think about jingles, it connects you to the brand. If I say Intel, I'm guessing people can hear the Intel tone in their mind. Emotion. People won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So that's a Maya Angelou quote. Right. And then fluency. So distinctive brand assets. This is logo, color, even just having it be prominent so people actually know that is your ad. Distinctive assets are another part. So those are some of the things that we are encouraging B2B marketers to invest in. And the good news is that we are starting to see a shift here, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's something that in terms of creativity and B2B, something that we'd like to realize and often share is it's not enough to inform. You've got to help them feel. And there's no better way to help someone feel something than through storytelling.
That's right.
And so, do your homework and get inspired and keep that creative team during these challenging times, right?
That's right. That's right. That's a competitive advantage, having people that can generate ideas and emotion and all of those things. Absolutely. So
you're an inspiring advocate of diversity and inclusiveness issues. And obviously DE&I is increasingly becoming part of the marketing conversation. There's still a lot of progress to be made. And obviously besides being the right thing to do, it's good for business. Has LinkedIn's research found that to be true as well?
Yeah. And we're actually coming at it from a different lens, because I hope, at this stage, that we can all accept that when you invest in DEI, we are going to see those benefits. We are going to see the increased innovation. We're going to see reduced risk. We're going to see increased revenue. I hope that that's like a baseline that we all can accept, because we've seen the reports that DEI, investing in DEI is good business. What we want to explore more deeply is, if leaders accept those findings to be true from all of those different reports, then why don't we always see the action we would expect to see from leaders who accept that to be true? Where is the breakdown? So in our research,
the accountability.
Exactly. So in our Equity Everyday research, we sought to answer the question, if diversity is good for business, why aren't people buying? Is it translating into action? Why aren't we seeing managerial diversity, women on boards, and all of these other things, benefit from that understanding? And we partnered with Professor Jamila Bowman-Williams of Georgetown University, and she's a Harvard faculty fellow now, to explore what's happening. And what we learned is this is like big behavioral science, thinking as well, is that there's a gap. There's a thing called a knowledge action gap, which is really a distinction between people's real and stated preferences. So one example is, although 80% of people may say that DEI is important and they want to invest in it, only 38% of people take an action in accordance with that. For example, promoting a highly qualified Black job candidate. The hypothesis here is that in the gap is bias. It's things like zero-sum bias. A gain for one community is a loss for another. Cognitive dissonance, where people feel their very identity threatened by the conversation, or something called persuasion knowledge, where, for example, a lot of companies will have mandatory diversity training, and people feel like it's being kind of rammed down their throats, and like, I don't really want to do this. And is this, it feels like it's being sold. So long story short, we have to get past bias, and that is a very human thing. There's no avoiding that. But there's an opportunity for marketers to contribute to how we break through that, because what we've seen is appealing to people's sense of compassion, morality, being able to stand in someone else's shoes and understand what it's like to be them is what helps to move the needle. We as marketers are responsible for a great deal of socialization. We tell stories, we have connections to the customer. And also, frankly, there's an expectation from audiences that we take a greater role when it comes to brand stewardship, or, when it comes to the messages that we share, how we take care of the communities that we operate in. People want to work for brands that they are excited about, and that also have a commitment to taking care of the world and various other social justice initiatives. So there's an opportunity for marketers to lean in here, to tell stories. And we've seen in the research statistically significant uplift when people show, for example, inclusive ads. There's a thing called a diversity dividend that we were able to track with System 1 in terms of the uplift. People want to feel seen. They want to see themselves reflected. And when you're watching a story, for the time you're watching that story, you're able to step into what it's like to be that person. So there's a huge opportunity for marketing and communications to play a role in advancing this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about so much stuff there, but I'm one thing that I'm thinking about, and how it's just good marketing represents your audience in your content. I mean, come on,
Exactly.
come on, right? So one thing that and we have so much to do ourselves. I mean, for me, it's just like there's systemic barriers for me to finding the best talent. By the way, we're hiring, but there are. So it's it's like. But the other thing, one thing that we've been working on is influencers. So obviously we, as an agency, a big part of what we do is help brands connect better with customers by working with industry experts and also to build experts within the organization. But so we've been focusing for a while now on identifying, and we work primarily in the technology space, identifying people of color in the technology space that we can partner with and then make recommendations to our clients to feature those folks. Because we're thinking, we always had this, okay, you want to work with the most famous people in some instances, but you also want to help people become more influential. So you want to find those rising stars. And because that's part of the people want to see themselves in the marketing content, right? Someone that they can relate to.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And investing in and building a network has been everybody wins situation, a network of people in technology that are influential, that we could recommend, sometimes recommending to a brand. It's like, are you focused on people of color in your influencer program? Well, guess what? We have a relationship with people that we can introduce you to. And we don't always do that, or the opportunity to do that doesn't always present itself. But when it does, it's an everybody wins situation, because the folks that we recommend get exposure when maybe in other scenarios that they may not. And then they bring a lot to the table. Yeah. Because they had to work so much harder than other people to get where they are. They have really great stories to tell. They tend to be really, really talented and bring a lot to the table as an influencer, right? Which, again, everybody wins.
Yeah. I really want to dispel the myth that only the person is getting the exposure is winning. Everybody wins from the communication of these broad ideas and the tension of the discussion. It makes everything better. But I also want to just acknowledge you for that, because there's so many people that have great ideas that don't have a platform to share. And so thank you to you and your team for curating those voices, getting exposure, and thank you for who you've been for me as well. I really appreciate it.
Well, you bring so much to the table. Trust me, I'm benefiting and becoming smarter every time we get a chance to talk. So, and I'm sure everyone listening in or watching feels the same way. So thank you. I love the research that B2B Institute put out on 2030 B2B trends, right? Contrarian ideas for the next decade. Are there any of those ideas that you think are worth paying attention to as we go into the new year?
Yes. Yeah. Well, first, let me talk about the franchise, because I'm super excited about this. So for 5 years running, we have been gathering what we call contrarian ideas for B2B marketers. And what we mean by contrarian, because we're not contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. We mean we're trying to find little known ideas that when you invest in them, they deliver a lot of value. Because you can be wrong or right about something, or you can be consensus with the crowd or contrarian against the crowd. When you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're consensus and right, everyone's playing in that space. But if you're contrarian and right, then you can actually capture a lot of the opportunity. So we're looking for those types of ideas. It's a mental model for us to identify the things that we think that B2B marketers should be focusing on. And so this 2030 trends report that you referenced is a representation of like our top 3 trends, like across all the trends. And I think there's like maybe like 25 or 30 different trends that we have on our website at this point. So they are, one trend is called the war on brand. And it's about the balance between long-term growth and short-term growth. And we've talked about that a little bit already with like the 95-5 rule. And another one is called blockbuster marketing, and it's about creative effectiveness. And then we also have the birth of broad targeting, or the death of hyper targeting, however you want to flip it, which is about distribution effectiveness. So we like to cover strategy, creative, distribution, measurement. You can find all of those things. But just very briefly on each of those ideas, long-term versus short-term marketing, the age-long dilemma, right? We know from the research that investing in brand makes a difference. Brand effects last longer, they compound over time. It's the 95-5 rule. It's your investment in future cash flows, right? And, for a long time, when we think about this war on brand, because we can measure lead gen, because it's happening in the current time, marketing has become very tilted. B2B marketing has become very tilted towards that. So what we're trying to do is show, the benefits of investing for the long term and what that unlocks in terms of value creation. When it comes to creativity, I think we can learn a lot from Disney. Right. So Disney is like, everybody knows the Disney movies, like goes to see them. And they do a lot more than just the cartoons. There's so much that Disney is up to. And what we learned from them is that you can benefit a lot from making big bets versus small bets. Hollywood learned this, which is why they have this blockbuster strategy. You have, that people go to see big movies. That's the movies they choose, doing sequels and prequels and having a distinctive feel to all the different assets. Like, a Pixar movie is a Pixar movie, right? Yeah. So like if we bring some of those things into marketing, like we think about our thought leadership franchises, like B2B Trends, like bringing it back each year, having a sequel, being distinctive, putting the proper funding or behind it to get the reach it deserves. All of those things play out as well. And then finally, hyper targeting. So we've become similar to lead gen. We've become obsessed with it because we can target, the CIO of a pharmaceutical company in Denver with laser precision. We're doing that. And so, but the challenge is when you do that, you're making a lot of assumptions. So you're assuming that the data you have to target is accurate. You're assuming that there's not going to be an evolution in the committee of buyers that's buying over time. You are imagining that how the category is going to set over time. And so there's just so many things as you layer on, it can become more and more inaccurate. So we want people to recognize buying groups do change. People leave companies all the time. Also, you don't know who's making the decision. So it's better to target broadly, what we call relevant reach. In B2C, when you're selling toothpaste, you can reach everyone with teeth. In B2B, when you're selling a cloud computing platform, you don't know who's going to buy it. You want to relevant reach. It wouldn't make sense to target everyone, but you want to try to reach everyone in the category who could potentially want to buy a cloud computing platform at some point. Yeah,
that makes sense. One of the characteristics that a lot of modern B2B buyers appreciate is brand authenticity. What would you recommend that B2B brands or marketers should do to be more authentic, to sound more authentic, to feel more authentic?
Yeah. I mean, let's first of all talk about what an authentic brand does and building it does. what it says to people is that you are standing on something. You can be counted on. Who you are now is who you're going to be 1 year from now. You can be trusted. It provides security for your brand. It de-risks the buying process for people because they know they can count on you. So this is something that you have to invest over a period of time. It's not one of those things where you can say, here's something that I stand on. This is an authentic brand. Like, it has to be proven through action, how you show up in your community, and how you engage your customers, your employees are a big part that people don't think about, leaders, and also your shareholders. So there's a lot of opportunity there for you to invest, but it's something that needs to be done over time. And it's something that once people see the action, they can stand on and trust. And that it takes courage. I think the brands that are doing it well, they recognize those groups that their companies affect, and they focus on serving their interests, not just the interests of the firm. And it means, showing competence. It means playing fair and equitably, remediating and dealing with challenges or impact that your company has, whether it's intended or not. When you think about like your relationship with another human, it's kind of like how you would, kind of manage that. Like, how do you show up for people? What builds trust with people? Because it's both an emotional and logical act to take, because you have to expose some semblance of vulnerability in order to build, but when people see how you navigate through, what they're looking for is, will you act in a predictable manner? Can I trust you or not? Mm-hmm. Businesses have to think about, how do I maintain and not betray stakeholder trust to show up authentically? And like, what does that look like across those different audiences with different initiatives? And it shouldn't just be in the marketing department, although marketers can play a big role. It has to be infused in terms of how you operate all across the business.
Well, do you have an authentic culture, right?
Yep.
So we're going to switch gears here and talk about the fact that you've been a 2-time Olympic trials qualifier in track and field. Now we're going to bring it back to marketing. Are there any lessons that you learned from your experience or from that experience that served you well as a marketer?
Yeah. My gosh, what haven't I learned from track and field? I ran track and field since I was 10 years old. Wow. Competitively. My knees told me that I can't do it anymore right for now. So I'm trying to get together. So I'm like big on the Peloton and other stuff right now, but it's made a huge difference in my life. I think one of the biggest things I got from it was, how do I think about team and working as a team? Track and field is an interesting sport. I'm trying to think of like other sports that are similar to it, in that there is a solo component of it where it's just you on the starting line, and it's on you. You got to step up and you got to, compete. And then there are other elements of it when you think about the relays, 4x1, 4x4, 4x8, where it's not just about you, it's about the whole, and it's about getting the baton around the track. And so in terms of like my own discipline, ability to focus, ability to fail and get back up again, not to shy away from expression to some degree, because I think, for example, Penn Relay is one of the biggest track meets in the world. There's like 40,000 people in the stadium, and you're on the line wanting to like pass out, or hide, but you can't. You just can't. And then being able to do that with a team and thinking about, how do we take care of each other on the team? What does someone need? What order of operations do you kind of set things up so that you're thinking about the whole? That has been incredibly valuable to me in terms of how I do business and how we navigate through different times, and how I lead my team. My gosh, but I would also think turning up the dial of resilience. What I said about failure is so key. Getting back up again, remembering that it's a failure to reach a desired outcome, but not that you are a failure. Right. Is also one of the biggest lessons, because in order to get to great, you gotta, try things, and those things may not work out, but there's tomorrow, there's the next day to keep going.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So one question we ask everyone is this: what brings you the most joy when it comes to marketing?
So Lee, fun fact about me, I went to Georgetown University undergrad. I thought I was going to be an ambassador or some sort of a politician at some point. So I've always been interested in moving society, moving people, moving things forward. And, ended up moving out to the Bay Area, which landed me smack dab in the middle of like Silicon Valley, and where I ended up early in my career working for Google. I was a first grade teacher, and then, long story short, somehow, some way ended up at Google, and it exposed me to this idea of messages at scale. This ability to deliver messages, to communicate at scale, and how much power and responsibility that comes with that. That's important for us to think about as marketers. And I see the potential, beyond advertising, for marketing and communications to be a medium through which things can be moved, ideas can be moved. Ideas that aren't so great can be replaced by stronger ideas. Stories can be told. Things will resonate with people in a way that moves people. So that is what brings me joy about the work. I want people to feel something, and I want people to do something because they felt something.
Awesome. Well, I feel grateful that you shared so many great insights, and that you've invested in your time helping educate marketers. I can't wait for people who haven't necessarily heard of you yet, find you this way, because they're going to subscribe to the Ty Heath message and approach. So where can people find or connect with you? What would you prefer? Is it in terms of following you, following your work, and that sort of thing?
Well, you know what I'm going to say. LinkedIn is what I absolutely welcome folks connecting on LinkedIn. I post and write about all the things that we discussed today. You can find more of that there. And then I also have a website, tyronaheath.com, and I have a newsletter there that you can subscribe to. And so, welcome you to connect, and I look forward to learning more about you and what you're up to as well.
Fantastic. And I'll be sure to include links to those places in the show notes. So thank you, Ty, so much for sharing your wisdom and insights, and helping us do our part to help elevate the practice of B2B marketing. So the B2B marketing, Elevate B2B Marketing podcast is brought to you by the team here at TopRank Marketing, where we help enterprise B2B tech companies get more customers through content, search, and influencer marketing. You can find us online at toprankmarketing.com. Make sure you subscribe to the Elevate B2B podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We have an amazing roster of upcoming B2B marketing smarties, and you're not going to want to miss it. So thanks again, Ty.
Thank you.